do you lie to someone who immediately says, hey, I know you're lying, and I know why you're lying? And I don't care. Let's be best friends. Here's my talking sword. Her name is Ingrid, and she loves you. The next rhetorical trick is humor, which Odin gets a lot of use out of. Notice that moment where he pretends not to know where Heimdall is behind him. Odin is the most powerful and most observant god in all of Norse mythology. He knows where Heimdall is. It's all a performance, pretending that he doesn't, being goofy, being a little silly. That makes him seem like less of a threat, more likable, more approachable. Next is with promises, false or true. He promises Atreus, I have the answers to your big questions. Keep playing along with me. Even if you know I'm manipulating you, you also know that I might be able to give you what you want. Odin also does a lot of mixing compliments with criticisms. Notice how in the same breath he both praises Heimdall for his perception and criticizes him for his short-sightedness. Or notice how he calls Atreus curious and open-minded, and then 20 seconds later criticizes for free. Tyr. Odin never compliments without purpose and never criticizes without softening the blow with a compliment, except with Thor, who he criticizes constantly and viciously, but I'll get to that later. Finally, look back to how he says to Atreus, you're lucky my offer still stands after you went and sprung Tyr. There's a thread of violence here. Underneath all the humor, the flattery, the apparent honesty and promises. With Odin, there's always a threat of violence. There's always the unspoken fact that if you don't fall for his manipulation, he could just physically force you to do what he wants, or even just outright destroy you. He is powerful and dangerous, and everyone knows it. And he knows they know it, so he doesn't even have to come out and say it. All he has to do is suggest it, pepper the little threats in here and there. Odin is a master manipulator, but those manipulations don't always work. Sometimes people just refuse to play along with him. In those cases, Odin moves on to his second strategy, which is simple and brutal subjugation. When he couldn't manipulate Tyr into doing what he wanted, he imprisoned him, tortured him, and tried to force him into it instead. Same thing with Mimir. When he couldn't manipulate Mimir into doing what he wanted anymore, he imprisoned him, tortured him, and tried to force him into it instead. Odin's interactions with Thor are another example of this, but a little different. Odin doesn't seem to make any real attempt to manipulate Thor. He doesn't use any flattery, humor, honesty, or promises with Thor. He just emotionally bullies the big guy into doing anything he says.
Thor was really great. I learned a lot from him. You learned something from him? Really? Okay. What did you teach the kid?
Nothing. What could I possibly teach him?
Exactly.
I just don't get it. The mask. Bringing the giant who killed my sons. Why?
I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you. Not plenty of white ink for you, clouding whatever's left of your brain.
This isn't about her.
No, it's about your limitations. Accept them and move on. Go smash something, will you? Honestly, I like you better as a drunk.
This is another form of subjugation, a sort of verbal or emotional subjugation. Whenever this subjugation fails, Odin resorts to his final method, destruction. You can see this most clearly with Thor. When Thor finally stands up to his father and says no, Odin immediately kills him.
Why is he dead? You talking? Who told you to do that? You don't talk. You don't think. I think. You kill. It's a simple fucking concept.
It's frustrating like you. Just didn't want to see it.
What is this? Are you broken? I am your father. Take the hammer and kill who I tell you to kill.
No.
What is This was all their fault. They've done this to us, to our family.
Because the one thing he cannot stand is to no longer control. Even if it is death, he will still control Thor. You can also see this in the extermination of the giants. He couldn't manipulate the giants because they were too smart, and he couldn't subjugate them because they were too strong. Not just physically, but morally strong too. Almost every story we hear about the giants describes them as a race who cared about doing what was right. Unlike Thor, Odin could never bully the giants into committing wrong, so he destroyed them. Using these three methods of control, manipulation, subjugation, and destruction, Odin was in total and complete control of the 9 realms. That is, until Kratos. The arrival of Kratos in Midgard changed everything. Because unlike anyone else, Kratos was someone Odin could not manipulate, could not subjugate, and could not destroy. This is one of those what happens when an unstoppable force meets an unbreakable object sort of moments. When faced with this unmanipulatable, unsubjugatable, indestructible force that randomly wandered into his life and schemed seemingly from nowhere, how does Odin react? Well, at the start of Ragnarok, he tries manipulation anyway, and fails, because Kratos refuses to play along. He is unimpressed by every single one of Odin's rhetorical tricks. Watch it happen in this clip.
You know, boy, back before winter set in, there were some misunderstanding. Regret. But I think we all have a better idea of who we're dealing with. Now, what you did to his boys, self-defense. That is what we deserve. Let's be honest, they were kind of useless. But Balder, he had value. He was my best tracker, my closer. Yeah, his mind was gone, sure. But he had his uses, and now he's gone because of you. Follow me? You have a debt. You have no fun anymore.
What do you want?
Where the fuck?
How does peace strike the esteemed, retired god of war? Just don't kill each other. How about you stay calm, kick up your feet, seek, don't quarrel with me, and I'll have none with you. Shit, I'll even sweeten the deal. I'll let you keep the prisoner that I know you stole. That's right, I know you're in somewhere, you silver-tongued little shit.
What is going on with you? What is your promise?
There it is, my old partner in crime.
He's lost weight. If he tells you snow is white, he's lying.
What kind of wisdom is that? Can't the smartest head alive see past himself? See that we all want Here's a deal I know you can trust. I'll settle your debt with my ex. Keep trail off your back. Keep your boy safe. That's really all you want, isn't it? So what do you say?
In response to all that, the humor, the supposed honesty, the veiled threats, the promises, Kratos simply says no. Also notice that the reason Odin allows Thor to attack Kratos is to give him time alone with Atreus, because even if he can't manipulate Kratos, he is betting that he can manipulate his son, that he needs to be alone to do that. You might be asking, why doesn't he just destroy Kratos? That's his normal MO. Manipulate until he can't, then subjugate, then destroy when he can't subjugate. But notably doesn't do this with Kratos. Well, there are two reasons for that. Firstly, most simply, Kratos is the God Killer. Kratos has a special gift.
I thought I
for
increased the
giants.
random tick speed,
Sometimes it
didn't
seems
I?
as if all of his powers and talents are focused into that one skill trait, slaying gods. Trying to destroy Kratos has worked out really, really poorly for a lot of gods in the past, and Odin knows it. Trying to destroy Kratos is a Hail Mary method of last resort, which, out of a sense of self-preservation, Odin will try to avoid. Secondly, because Odin wants to manipulate Atreus, and that's a lot easier if he doesn't kill his father. Atreus will never work with his father's murderer, so for as long as Odin needs Atreus, he needs Kratos to still be alive. Except he actually does not stop trying to manipulate Kratos after this scene, as is ultimately revealed. He can't manipulate Kratos openly, so he tries to do it in disguise instead. Odin disguises himself as Tyr, a disguise so perfect no one ever suspects it. As Tyr, Odin engages in an absolutely brilliant manipulation, which is that he manipulates by appealing to the goodness and virtue within our heroes. He knows that
There's an
Kratos,
LA here.
Atreus, and their whole crew want to do what's right, want to be virtuous. So watch what Odin does under the guise of Tyr.
Midgard. But if Atreus is in Asgard, there's no getting him back without an army. We should go to Brazil.
Yes, nothing like catastrophic war to the situation. The boy seems quite capable. Perhaps if you simply give him some time.
You are free of blame. You his foolishness. Seek war. But if Odin had stolen my son, do not doubt the place I would to.
Your nature has always been clear, Kratos. But you, Freya. War is a first resort. That's not the Freya I knew. I hope the Norns can give you the counsel you need. Perhaps mine is no longer of use here.
Dear, stop. This is no time to fight ourselves further. Sit, please.
What's so amazing here is that Odin is manipulating them by encouraging them to be their best selves, to avoid violence and bloodshed. Odin is manipulating them by encouraging them to do the right thing, because in this case, them doing the right thing helps Odin. So they won't kill him. The thing is, fate here would be correct like 99% of the time. 99% of the time, bloodshed and violence should be avoided at all costs. But if you take this to an absolute, declare that you will never fight ever, no matter what, then this desire for peace becomes self-destructive. Every now and then, an Adolf
Oh my
Hitler
god.
then pacifist fades, because the only way to stop an Adolf
I
Hitler
guess this-
is through violence.
I guess this just happens, huh?
Ever fight Odin, but Odin will be free to continue slaughtering the Vanir, free to continue the extermination of giants, free to continue destroying Midgard. It's manipulation. It's what he's saying should be right, but not the exceptional circumstance of opposing a murderous tyrant. It's really smart. Odin only drops his near-perfect Tyr disguise a couple times. One of the most interesting I noticed was when Brock and Sid reveal that they stole the self-replicating golden ring from Odin. Notice how Fate reacts to that revelation.
Drop me in. I thought he knew these two had been and Odin blamed me for it disappearing.
They stole Drunk.
We didn't steal nothing. We just ungifted what never should have been gifted in the first place.
In that clip, Tyr gets up in Sindri's face and says that was... This is a bizarre reaction because Tyr really shouldn't care. It has nothing to do with it. But Odin, he would care a lot about learning who stole something from him. This moment shows how, despite trying to control everyone around him, Odin is often unable to control himself, his own responses. He's surprisingly hot-headed and impetuous. You can see this aspect of his character most clearly when he murders Brock.
This is what I'm needed for. This is my purpose. One last time, I will pick up my spear and I will lead us to Asgard.
Excuse me. But if you got a scar, where's that idea been this whole fucking while? That's not a fit question, brother. You will have that scar.
he needed to give Loki time to find his destiny. It's all linked to this.
If we can get inside, I'm going after Odin.
That will not stop you. We can do both.
Spot on, brother. If the mask doesn't give us an out, we'll still have a drop on it. Works for me.
Let's do it then, and quickly, before he sees us coming.
Does hate surprises.
Slow down, Bruce. I still want to hear the details on this. You wait till I start down. Spill it!
It's an ancient path. We can't reach it from here.
What did it?
Let me collect my things and I'll show you.
You ain't got it. Don't forget that. That belongs to the kid. He earned it. All you done was make passable dirt soup.
Rob, it's okay.
No, it ain't. This ain't right. All the pieces ain't welded together true. Like, what was it calling you Loki anyway? Hey, hey, I'm talking to you.
Let go of the boy. Face me.
So your brother is throwing me the mask and you've got to deal with it.
Man,
If he does,
No. What's the part of the plan? Against you guys, we are square for Heimdall. And honestly, you got a bargain.
I will kill you. Plan on that.
So nice spending time with you.
man, please.
Places you want, my friend.
Hey,
I don't know you know too many things.
I would break the ice and kill you. One of them. What's up? I'm in control. Here. Throw me the map. Now.
Odin's murder of Brock is purposeless. It accomplishes nothing. It doesn't help Odin in any way. It doesn't further any of his plots or schemes. I think it is a purely spontaneous, unplanned murder. The only reason he does it is because Brock is annoying. This is a moment where Odin appears to have lost control of himself, done something without thinking through the consequences. And notice how Odin shouts, "I am in control here." It's such a fascinating cry because of its desperation. It's not in control. He has not only lost control of the situation, but lost control of himself. That momentary loss of control, giving into his hateful, violent impulses, his casual disregard for the value of life, is what ultimately leads him to a total loss of control over his own fate. Let's be clear. If Odin hadn't killed Brock, Odin would not have died. After the final confrontation, Atreus, Kratos, and Freya all choose to let Odin live. It's Sindri who kills them in revenge for the murder of his brother. If Odin hadn't lost control here, he would still be alive here. It's so fascinating that the man who cares more about control than anything is undone by being unable to control
Torch
himself.
flowers.
In literature, in film, games, pursuit of total control almost always leads to total destruction instead. Odin is one more in a long line of characters to learn this lesson. These stories about the way pursuit of control leads to destruction speak to the human reality that we are not in control. You and I will never be in total control of our lives. Whether it be sickness, loss, disaster, something will always come to show us how little control we have. To conclude this essay, I want to watch this scene where Angerboda warns Atreus against trying to change his fate.
Sorry. I don't know what happened.
No, don't worry about it. It happens to everyone.
That happens to everyone.
Not the worst part, but getting scared about your future.
That cannot be my future. Things are fully in my father dies. There's just no way.
Look, this is the only way things turn out. The sooner you accept that, the better. Oh, shit, I was mean to.
So Angerboda claims here that fate is unchangeable, and the story proves her incorrect. Because Atreus and Kratos do change this fate. Kratos does not die. What Angerboda gets wrong is that she's thinking at too grand a scale. No, you can't control fate. You can't control the future. You can't control the stars. You can't control the planet. You can't control everyone around you. But you can control yourself. control the choices you make. This is how Atreus and Kratos subvert that promise, by making the right choices at the right times, by choosing to be better than they are. And this is how Odin is destroyed, not by fate, not by some prophecy. Sindri is not any part of that prophecy. As far as the prophecies of the giants go, Sindri is just some guy. But by choosing to do the wrong thing, by choosing to be the worst, most violent, and most vicious version of himself, Odin destroys himself. That's what happens next. That's where you go when you go. That's your ultimate fate when you're a manipulative, murderous asshole.
It's already late spring. Wait, did increasing the random tick speed... I don't think so. I believe fire spread is affected by random tick speed as well, so while it helps my crops go, it makes destruction go faster too. You know, I'm not stupid anymore. I'm not gonna accidentally burn my house down a second time. I hope. Oh boy. The automatic fire is as good as it is bad. Well, as good as it is, as helpful as it is a hindrance. Wait, why are there iron nuggets here?
I already made a video breaking down Odin's character a long time ago now, but in that video I focused almost exclusively on Odin when he's being Odin, and that's really only half of his character. The other half of the time, Odin is pretending to be someone else, and in that disguise he reveals some aspects of his character that we never see otherwise. In disguise, it becomes clear that Odin's greatest flaw is his impatience. He actually could have gotten everything he wanted in this story if he had not been so greedy, if he would have sat back and waited for the right opportunity to present itself, instead of lunging for the object of his desires as soon as he could. So the purpose of this video is to examine Odin's time pretending to be Tyr, to cover some aspects of his character I missed in that first video, and also to discuss how kind of really terrible that disguise actually is. Tyr's behavior is completely inconsistent. He contradicts himself a dozen different times. He constantly reacts in ways that Tyr just should not react, or gets upset and angry at things that don't make sense for him to care about in the first place. He is openly manipulative, conniving, purposely tries to create conflict between other characters. He gives away hints to his true identity over and over and over again. So, in addition to examining Odin's character, I am also going to point out every single time he lets the mask slip, when he accidentally reveals who he truly is, and there are a lot of them. Alright, so let's start at the start with his very first cutscene. We're going to watch the scene where Kratos and Atreus free Tyr, and as you watch all of these cutscenes, I encourage you to look for the inconsistencies in his behavior on your own. Alright, here it is.
This is the God of War.
Looks like I know. God killer. You come from me.
Always to free you.
Stay away.
Brother, let me try.
Dear.
Look.
No, don't. You killed Mimir.
No.
Yeah, we brought him right back. Yeah, stay away from me, you monster. Stop. We need him.
Right from the start, Odin's performance as Tyr is melodramatic, exaggerated, and silly. This is Odin's idea of a man broken by torture. Wild mood swings, emotional outbursts, running and shouting like a chicken with its head cut off, terrified of everything, anxious and neurotic, refusing to listen to reason. Of course, in Valhalla, we spent a lot of time with the real Tyr, and we learned that Tyr was never broken by his confinement or torture. In spite of everything, he maintained his emotional and spiritual fortitude. Tyr is actually an extremely strong character. This broken man we meet in this cutscene is just a ruse. It is a tool crafted by Odin. For whatever reason, he has calculated that a broken Tyr will be more effective at achieving his goals. I also suspect that Odin never could have imitated the real Tyr's true behavior, even if he wanted to. Odin is not capable of being as emotionally strong and supportive as the real Tyr. It just goes against everything in his nature. Anyway, at first, this Tyr is very calm. He suspects that Kratos has come to kill him. He does not express any fear of death, but he is actually doing something else in this moment too. Throughout this game, something both Tyr and Odin keep doing is purposely reminding Kratos of who he used to be. The God Slayer, the ghost of Sparta, the man consumed by rage, the killer, the murderer. It is a subtle attempt to undermine his growth, to very slowly chip away at his emotional defenses. We'll see more examples of this later. Later in this scene, Tyr suddenly grows very afraid. All of a sudden, death at the hands of Kratos, something he did not appear to care about at all 1 moment ago, is so terrifying to him that he has a complete freakout. I think most of us were willing to accept these wild swings in emotion because we assumed that Tyr had been psychologically broken by his torture. However, in hindsight, knowing what we know now, this swing in emotion is obviously very artificial. We have multiple examples of actually broken characters in this game. Freya at the start, Sindri at the end. Even Thor comes off as very broken, and none of them behave in this comical, over-the-top way. Their behavior is consistent and logical in a way that Tyr's never is. Alright, let's watch the next scene, where fake Tyr supposedly returns to his senses, and pay close attention to what he reacts to, why his behavior changes. Here it is.
We're just trying to get you out. Take you somewhere safe away from Odin.
Show mercy.
This is my father. We help people. I don't belong out here, please. It's worse when he's angry.
I'm such a man. Passing the phone. My son promised to this place.
You. Why? You don't know me.
I know what you stood for. You helped the giant. We're returning the bed.
Me?
We are.
Here. Your statue in the lid. You had a spear. Thought you needed a weapon. Fix it.
Kind thought. No. Thank you, no.
The way Tyr goes from being so totally shattered that he cannot listen to reason to being basically totally fine is definitely a bit suspicious. But notice what actually brings about the change in Tyr's behavior. The catalyst comes when he learns something. Something Odin did not know before. Something that changes all of his plans. Atreus says, "You helped the giants. We are returning the favor." And Tyr reacts by saying, "Wait, we?" Atreus has just revealed to Odin, the mortal enemy of the giants, that he himself is a giant. Probably the last remaining giant in Midgard. Exactly the person Odin was searching for in the last game. That was why Baldur came knocking on Kratos' door in the first place. And so Tyr's behavior immediately changes, because now Odin is thinking to himself, okay, well, I've got to find out more about this, and I'm not going to do that by acting like a crazy person. He has two primary motivations when it comes to this Tyr disguise. The first is to learn as much about his enemies as possible, and as we've seen, he's already been successful there. The second purpose is to push his enemies towards pacifism, to persuade Kratos, Atreus, and the rest to not pursue Ragnarok, to leave Asgard and thus Odin alone. After this cutscene, there's a lot of dialogue between these three characters we need to cover. The first question Tyr asks is, what are your names? Which is an inconsistency. 10 minutes ago, Tyr knew who Kratos was. He recognized the Blades of Chaos immediately. He knew Kratos' past. He even calls Kratos a Spartan at one point. He should already know Kratos' name. This is Odin making a mistake, an admittedly small mistake, but it's only the first of many. If the good guys had been paying closer attention to all these little mistakes and inconsistencies, they might have suspected that there was something very wrong with Tyr before it was too late. But let's move on. The next question Tyr asks is, how does a son of a Spartan come to speak for the Jotnar? This is Odin revealing what he really cares about. More than anything, he wants to peel the layers off this new mystery. Atreus has some kind of relationship with the giants, and he intends to find out what that is. It is important to note that Odin has no idea how long this disguise might actually last. He could not have predicted that they would take him back to their secret base and keep him there basically forever. He is trying to get as much information as quickly as possible to get at the most important information first, before his disguise is blown. Next, Tyr asks a couple questions he already knows the answers to, but he's got to maintain the disguise. He's trying to mask his true intentions. So he asks why Atreus freed him, then about what happened to Mimir, and then about Baldur's fate. Something interesting here is that Odin probably does not know the full story surrounding Baldur's death. He clearly knows that it was Kratos who killed him, but I doubt he knows all of the specifics. So this is him subtly trying to learn the full story, which works. Kratos and Mimir tell him everything. It is also around this point that Tyr reveals he has abjured from all violence, that he will never take up arms again, no matter what. He will actually break the supposedly solemn oath in the not-so-distant future, but for now it provides a reasonable explanation as to why this Tyr will consistently refuse to oppose Odin's tyranny, without raising any serious suspicions. It also provides him with a moral stance from which he can argue against Ragnarok. And then there's another cutscene in which that prophesied deadly battle is discussed, and once again, Tyr's behavior is inconsistent, so let's watch that.
Before we go any further, the truth. What is it you want from me? You speak of Ragnarok. Is it a god of war you came to find? Is that the Tyr you need?
That's right.
Forgive me. I am grateful for my freedom. But if you want me to follow you to war, or worse yet, lead you to it, then kill me now. My fight is gone. Damage is done.
No one's killing you, brother.
To live to see Ragnarok.
To seek war.
We just want some answers. I don't know how to help you. It doesn't matter. The giants trusted you. That's the Tyr we need. We need you. Alright. All I ask is for a good night's rest. Maybe some food. I think you killed the guards bringing me dinner.
Does anyone else remember, like, 10 minutes ago when Tyr was all like, "Oh, don't kill me, please, mercy, mercy." And now he's like, "Kill me now, I'm ready to die." Dude, pick a lane. Of course, the real reason for these changes in behavior is because Tyr is saying whatever is most convenient for Odin's manipulations at that particular moment. And he assumes people are not going to notice the subtle inconsistencies, or even if they do, they will dismiss them as the mere mood swings of a man broken by decades of torture and trauma. With all that said, Odin's manipulations are kind of brilliant.
Oh, that was pretty
Tyr's
cool.
opposition to Ragnarok is perfectly understandable and even kind of persuasive. Ragnarok, as first prophesied, would have been an event of unprecedented death and destruction. If that war can be avoided, it would not just be beneficial to Odin, who is of course prophesied to die in battle, but beneficial to the entire world. In this pacifist disguise, Odin is able to argue convincingly against pursuing Ragnarok. And because he is speaking with Tyr's voice, he knows his opinion will be listened to and respected by the good guys. At the end of the scene, when Tyr asks for a good night's rest and some food, what he's actually doing is trying to get the heroes to reveal the location of their hideout. And that works too. They take him straight to Sindri's home among the branches of the World Tree. After the scene, there's more discussion about the events of the previous game, during which Atreus briefly mentions that the giants are gone before moving on with the rest of the story. But then Tyr interrupts him to ask, wait, the giants are gone? Which again reveals what Odin is actually interested in. He does not know anything about the fate of the Jotnar, his mortal enemies. This is very important information to him. You can just imagine how excited he must be in this moment to learn something about the state of Jotunheim, a realm that has been locked to him for a very long time. I bet Odin cannot believe how successful this disguise has already turned out to be, how much he has learned about his enemies in such a short time, the location of their hideout, the fact that Atreus is a Jotun, the apparent extinction of the rest of the giants, the true story behind Baldur's death. Next, let's watch when Tyr first arrives at Sindri's home. As you watch, pay very close attention to the things Tyr says. Ask yourself, why is Odin choosing to say these things? What are his true goals? Because with Odin, everything is a manipulation. Okay, here it is.
I may need time to construct a bed for someone of your scale.
Please, don't go to trouble on my account. Too much space would be unsettling. Do you have a broom closet?
Yes, but it's where I keep my brooms.
That's all I need. To be honest, it's all I can manage.
All right. Some food then.
Oh, nothing much. Perhaps some hardtack.
Hardtack.
Any sort of humble ship's biscuit will do.
Aye.
With a pinch of salt.
Well, I'll see what I can find.
When Tyr asks for a broom closet to stay in, what he's really doing is asking for somewhere quiet and out of the way where he can hide his gateway back to Asgard, somewhere it will not be noticed by others. And make a point to remember that line about simple ship's biscuits going forward, because it will be important later on. Right now, Odin is putting on this performance of, oh, I'm Tyr, and I'm so simple, and I'm so humble, and I love sleeping in broom closets, and I'm happy to eat hardtack. If you don't know anything about hardtack, it is a very dense, very hard, very dry, and tasteless biscuit that, because it can last for months without spoiling, was often eaten on long sea voyages in the past. Descriptions of hardtack say that it is as hard as a brick, but with slightly less flavor. It is a completely unappetizing and unappealing food item. In short, it is a ridiculous thing for Tyr to ask for. The thing is, Odin does not really know what it's like to be humble, so his idea of humility is this ridiculous caricature, and it is a performance he is not able to maintain for long. In the very next scene, he contradicts himself again. In the next scene, all of our favorite characters sit down to eat breakfast together, and Tyr continues to manipulate everyone around him. As you watch, think about what our hero's next objective is revealed to be, and consider who is actually going to most benefit. Okay, here it is.
That is not the respect concerns me. I trust the path they would put us on.
I trust their wisdom. And this is the closest thing to hearing directly from them.
I must search the giants' podcast of war.
I said that they were wise. My experience, that goes with being peaceful.
Oh, little brother. Told you we needn't worry.
Is this sausage?
Sure. Why not?
I remember food.
I was gonna talk about poisonous potato. I was gonna say, you know, there's a tiny chance I can get poisonous potatoes. But I don't know what are the chances. It seems to be very small by the looks of things.
Trace where I'm planning the next move.
Oh, so where are we going?
Alpha. Come with the ends.
Alpha. You hate Alpha. Why would we move there?
Move it. See.
Try to grow a young one.
Father tells me you found it there. Grow up? Knowledge came from? Oh, maybe there's a secret there I can unlock.
Gotcha from the CEO, so everything.
Here, you're really up for coming with us? I am. Whenever you're ready. Well, whenever your father's ready, I should say. If my counsel might help you towards the answers you seek, it's the least I can do to repay you. Plus, I think it will do me well to see the light of Elfheim again.
That elf life is some good shit. At the start of this scene, Atreus listens through the door while Kratos and Tyr discuss their next plan. They will travel to Alfheim to find Groa's shrine. Okay, so Groa was a Jotun sorceress with a talent for prophecy. She was the one who first foresaw the calamitous battle of Ragnarok, and was later murdered by Odin. In the previous game, our heroes discovered several shrines which illustrate
Why would you do that?
of important giants. In between games, Atreus discovered that these shrines included hidden information meant
No, seriously.
for their fellow giants. And so, Kratos and Tyr have decided to return to Groa's shrine to see what other prophecies the giants may have hidden there. But who does this actually benefit? Kratos does not care about prophecy, and he is really not interested in Ragnarok. Atreus had not even considered going to Alfheim to find Groa's shrine. When you think about it, the only person who really gets anything out of this is Odin. The guy who is obsessed with prophecy, obsessed with preventing Ragnarok, obsessed with knowledge and knowing everything so that he can
What the?
control everything. It all happens off screen, so I can't know for sure, but I strongly suspect that it was Tyr who subtly pushed the conversation towards Groa's shrine, even though he claims it was Mimir's idea. A manipulator like Odin should be able to make someone think they are coming to a decision on their own, even when it was the manipulator's plan all along. When Atreus listens at the door, it is definitely Tyr who is pushing Kratos towards this path, under the guise of seeking the wise counsel of the supposedly evil giants. It's actually kind of crazy that Tyr chooses to join them when you think about it. He claims to be a radical pacifist who refuses to engage in combat or bloodshed of any kind. He is very well aware that Alfheim is still being ravaged by a perpetual and savage war between light elves and dark elves. If they journey to Alfheim, it is inevitable that they will get caught in the fighting. Tyr, if his motivations were consistent, should not want any part of this. Odin makes another mistake when they sit down to eat. Remember when Tyr was so simple and so humble that he was happy to eat nothing but hardtack? One of the worst foods ever invented by humanity? And yet, the very next morning, he is the only person at the table who complains about the taste of the food. Overnight, Tyr's opinion on meals has completely changed. It turns out that Odin actually prefers a little more flavor in his cuisine. Moving forward, Tyr joins our heroes on their quest through Alfheim, and there
I
is
guess
a
lightning
ton of
struck here or
dialogue we need to
something.
look at in this
Yikes.
section. Early on, the party is attacked by light elves. It is very clear immediately that this is a kill or be killed situation, and yet, somewhat hilariously, Tyr keeps trying to have a diplomatic discourse with them. Once again, this is Odin putting on a hyperbolic and comical performance, because he doesn't really know how an actual diplomat behaves. There is nothing wise or diplomatic about saying, "Now come on, guys, can't we just sit down and talk about this like gentlemen?" When someone is actively stabbing you in the face. That's just foolish. Tyr looks like a total idiot here. Next, we should talk about the way Tyr talks about Freyr. During the journey, the characters discuss the history of Alfheim. Once upon a time, Freyr, brother of Freya, negotiated a peace between the Light Elves and the Dark Elves. However, when his sister married Odin, an angry Freyr returned to his home of Vanaheim, correctly suspecting that it would soon be invaded by the forces of Asgard, because Odin's promises of peace were obviously a flimsy deception. Unfortunately, in his absence, the elves soon resumed their war. Tyr is extremely critical of Freyr's decisions. He sounds like he hates Freyr's brother, which is a strange thing for Tyr to feel, but makes perfect sense for Odin. Of course Odin hates Freyr, the only person to oppose his marriage to Freya, the person who continues to lead the resistance against his invasion in Vanaheim. the person who has been a thorn in his side for generations. There's also an interesting scene when they reach the light of Alfheim, and Kratos becomes entranced by the light, where he once heard an echo of his dead wife's voice. Afterwards, when the spell has passed, the camera turns to reveal Tyr, quietly watching in the background, who is surely pleased to have observed a new weakness in his enemy. The next scene we are going to watch together is Grove's true prophecy of Ragnarok. Watch, pay close attention to Tyr's reaction to this new information. Here it is.
Destroyed? But the other realms thrive? She lied. Oh, I lied. Of course she did.
Odin's fucking up a false prophecy.
So then, we can win, right? But for the first time, we know something Odin doesn't. We just saw we can win. Tyr? I won't allow prophecy to define your choices. But we just saw it. No, Prince. This is wrong.
There's much to discuss there. It's time.
In the original Ragnarok prophecy, the one everyone knows, Rowan told to Odin, basically the entire world, more or less, was supposed to be destroyed in the battle. But here in this scene, it is revealed that prophecy was a lie. In truth, Groa prophesied that only Asgard would be destroyed, while the rest of the realms would live on. While Atreus and Kratos proceed to get into an argument about their potential involvement, Tyr remains silent, apparently in a state of catatonic shock, so surprised he cannot even speak, which is a weird reaction for Tyr to have, but makes perfect sense for Odin. Odin has just learned that everything he thought he knew about Ragnarok, the great battle for which he has been planning for generations, was completely wrong. The truth is worse than anything he could have imagined. Before, the prophecy was far deadlier in scope, it would have been easy to persuade the heroes to avoid this disaster. Wants to fight a battle in which the entire world will be destroyed, including our own homes. But now that it has been revealed that Ragnarok's destruction will be far more limited, that it will only destroy the home of bad guys, well, that's a much easier sell. Odin just learned that he is totally screwed. It leaves him speechless. He tries to cover his reaction by pretending to be upset over all the lives that would be lost in Asgard, when what he's really upset about is that, in a single stroke, all of his plans have been made meaningless. After the scene, Tyr is clearly in a state of emotional distress, rushing as quickly as possible to get back to Sindri's home. Odin knows he doesn't actually care about returning to Sindri's. What he really wants to do is to return to Asgard, so he can deal with this new revelation and organize a new defense strategy. On the way back, apparently overwhelmed by frustration and panic, Tyr even breaks his pledge to never engage in combat again. He battles with the leg and knocks it unconscious. The characters don't react much in the moment. This is actually really crazy. This guy previously claimed he would never fight ever again for any reason. He even said that he was not emotionally or psychologically capable of fighting even if he wanted to. He was very definitive on this point. And here, he breaks that pledge for no reason other than that he was annoyed. That should have been seen as a serious red flag. This is exactly the same reason why Odin kills Brock later. Odin has a petulant streak. He has a temper. When things aren't going his way, he gets annoyed and lashes out. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, pay attention to Tyr's behavior, it becomes obvious that one of Odin's greatest flaws is a lack of patience. Before they leave Alfheim, there's a moment when Atreus falls into the Lake of Souls, and Kratos dives in to save them. Then they are both rescued by Tyr. This is a fascinating moment, because Odin could have chosen to not help, and it's very possible that two of his most dangerous enemies might have died right then and there. So then why does Odin choose to help them? Well, firstly, it would be a huge gamble. It's very possible that Kratos could have escaped anyway, and then Odin's disguise would be in trouble. Secondly, it is an opportunity to gain Kratos' full trust by saving the life of his son. And thirdly, and most importantly, because Odin wants Atreus. He knows that, among Atreus' other godly powers, the kid has an incredible talent for languages, that he can even magically recover otherwise lost languages. In Atreus, he believes he has found a means to decipher the ancient text on the maps, which he thinks will lead him to the ultimate knowledge of the mutual existence, which he cares about more than anything else, even more than his personal safety. In the next scene, Tyr begins attempting to sow division between our two main characters.
Oh, you know, I should keep some of the eggs.
There you are. Male fit for a champion.
Enough.
Yes, of course. What did we do that? I'm not offended. It's just a word.
Trying to judge it. That was the judgment of a man and not of a child.
But what if Loki going to Iron is the only way that's
On the trace. My son. Nothing more.
Forgive me, Ray. The words were chosen carelessly.
As Tyr hands the bowl to Atreus, he slaps him on the back like a jerk, grins like a total freak, and says, "A meal fit for a champion." Beyond the simple fact that everything about his behavior in this scene is stilted, awkward, bizarre, and does not match his previous behavior, what's happening here is that Tyr is trying to create conflict between Atreus and Kratos. Odin knows that Atreus wants to be the champion of the giants they saw in that previous prophecy, and he also knows that Kratos absolutely does not want him to be the Jotun champion. There is an opportunity here. Back in their first meeting, Odin learned that he was never going to be able to manipulate Kratos. The Ghost of Sparta has way too much experience with manipulative gods to ever get tricked that way again. But he does still believe that he can manipulate Atreus. So what he needs to do is to separate these two characters. If he can just get Atreus alone, he can persuade the younger and less experienced god to do what he wants. By subtly bringing the topic up at breakfast, or not so subtly, he hopes to create an argument, and it works perfectly. Kratos and Atreus almost immediately start shouting at each other. This is Odin's manipulations at their absolute most effective. The next time we see Tyr is a couple hours later, when Freya joins the heroes at Sindri's home, and as soon as they meet, he immediately begins attempting to subtly turn her against her new allies. Let's watch that scene together now.
Can it be? I never thought I'd have the pleasure of seeing you again, Frick.
Don't call me that. I haven't been that person in a long time. But I'm happy to see you too. I'd feared the worst for so long. Just been through.
Nothing so bad as what you've suffered. Freya, I am so sorry to hear what happened, Baldur. He was only a boy when I saw him last, but I know he meant more to you than anything.
Yes.
And to forbear your vengeance in this way, it's truly an inspiration for those of us who believe in peace.
The only peace these realms will ever know is once Odin is gone. Believe in that.
So you're not here to prevent Ragnarok, you're to bring it about.
I'm here to make sure Odin doesn't hurt anyone. way he hurt us.
I can see I've upset you. Forgive me. I am far removed from my days of diplomacy.
First, notice what Tyr calls her. He calls her by the name Frigg, which is her Aesir name. The only other character in the game who calls her Frigg is Odin. Once again, Tyr has made a mistake that the good guys fail to notice. The very next thing he does is to turn the conversation around to Balder. It's very subtle, but this is the exact same thing he did at breakfast in the previous scene. Subtly mention a subject which is ripe for conflict in hopes of sowing division between allies. Odin absolutely does not want Kratos and Freya, two of his deadliest enemies, working together. If he can break them apart, that will be a huge win. And you can see in her reaction that his words did have an effect on Freya. She had to pause for a moment to collect herself. After that, Tyr begins his campaign for peace, which is less effective with Freya than anyone else, because she, more than any other character, knows exactly how evil and destructive Odin's reign of tyranny really is, and she is absolutely dedicated to his destruction. In the face of her conviction, Tyr's attempts fall completely flat. Realizing his mistake, he quickly retreats. In the next scene, during Kratos and Atreus' argument, Tyr mostly just watches from the sidelines, not getting involved. He does not need to get involved, he's already succeeded. When everyone is trying to convince Atreus not to go to Asgard, Tyr does chime in, very briefly, just so he doesn't appear suspicious. But he does not argue against visiting Odin nearly as aggressively as any of the other characters, because of course he wants Atreus to go to Asgard. The next scene we're going to watch together is when Kratos decides to seek the Council of the Norns. Here it is.
Midgard. But Atreus is in Asgard. There's no getting him back without an army. We should be raising one.
Yes, nothing like a catastrophic war to improve the situation. The boy seems quite capable. Perhaps if you simply give him some time.
You are not real. You encourage his foolishness. It's confusing. Score. If Odin has stolen my son, do not doubt what I will do.
Your nature has always been clear, Kratos. But you, Frank. War as a first resort. That's not right by me. I hope the Norns can give you the counsel you need. Perhaps mine is no longer of use here.
Dear, stop. This is no time to find ourselves.
I absolutely adore the framing of this shot. The way Tyr very slowly creeps out of the shadows, lurking in the background. I think in the visuals here, the director of this cutscene is showing us that there is something suspicious about this guy, even if we can't quite put all the pieces together yet. Earlier, Tyr's manipulations did have some effect on Kratos. He was at least able to persuade him to seek Groa's shrine in Alfheim, but not anymore. Kratos is definitely aware of the way Tyr pushed his son towards accepting his role as the Jotun champion. Something interesting about Odin's manipulations is that he usually knows when to give up. As soon as he sees how angry Kratos is, he backs off, though not until he gets out one last snide little comment. This is actually a really dangerous moment for Odin. Kratos is only a couple steps away from realizing just how devious Tyr's behavior has truly been. When he realizes that Kratos isn't going to listen, he switches tactics. He tries to work on Freya instead. Of course, his comment, war as a first resort, is ridiculous. Freya already tried peace, and that failed. It only led to disaster. She tried exile, and that ended in sorrow and tragedy too. She is only seeking war after every other option has been exhausted, something the real Tyr should understand. Afterwards, he and Freya have a little powwow where he tries to justify the things he said to Atreus. But it all rings hollow. In this scene, Tyr mostly comes off as petulant and a bit childish. When all his attempts at manipulation fail, all he can do is whine and sulk about it. For all his vast experience and knowledge, Odin seems a bit immature.
Wow,
at
that's a
times.
bit expensive.
Moving forward, after meeting the Norns, Kratos and Freya become
The
determined to
Underpearl
kill
specifically.
Heimdall, Odin's original family. They seek help from
But I
Loki,
suppose that
Sif,
makes
to
a
come
lot
up
of
with a plan
sense.
to use Draupnir to craft a special secret weapon. Draupnir is a special treasure the dwarves stole from Odin, which is something no one knew until right now, and watch how Tyr reacts to this revelation.
Draupnir? I thought he knew these two and Odin blamed me for it disappearing.
They stole Draupnir.
We didn't steal nothing. We just ungifted what should have been gifted in the first place.
So now you find out. Violence cannot prevent violence, Kratos. I truly thought you understood.
My son is in danger. I'll come to you.
My brother, you're all worried about your son.
Enough! Heimdall's a threat, not only to the Trace, but to everyone.
Once again, Tyr has slipped up. He has reacted in a way that he shouldn't have. The real Tyr should not care who stole Draupnir. It has nothing to do with him. But of course, Odin is very interested to learn who stole from him. Notice how he refuses to get out of Sindri's way. It almost looks like a petty little attempt at revenge. As the scene continues, Tyr tries and fails to persuade the heroes to remain peaceful. But no one is interested in his advice anymore. At this point in the story, Tyr's character barely feels relevant at all. Everyone ignores everything he says. He has no influence over the course of events. He just sits around making soup all day. It is interesting that Odin chooses this moment to reapproach Kratos as himself for the first time since the start of the story. After crafting the new Heimdall killing spear, Odin appears in Kratos' path. Of
I
course, the
don't
only reason
think
he
there's
knows where to
value
find
in making
Kratos
a
at all
diamond
is
pack,
because he overheard their
since
travel plans
I'm
while in
pretty sure this
disguise
is the
earlier.
max.
I think this appearance is somewhat desperate. His manipulations as Tyr just aren't making any progress at all, so he's trying a different tactic. Instead, he will try to needle at Kratos' insecurities, undermine his sense of purpose, and throw him off balance. If he cannot prevent a battle, perhaps he can at least shake his enemy's confidence enough to cause him to make a deadly mistake. It is a desperate play, but it works. In the scenes that follow, we can see that Kratos is genuinely shaken by Odin's words. He feels lost and alone. He doesn't know what to do next. Once again, Odin's manipulations have borne fruit. Moving forward in the story, while on a mission for the Allfather, Atreus accidentally, or kind of purposely, frees Garm, a monster wolf with the ability to tear holes in the fabric of reality. Feeling like a failure, Atreus returns home to his father, and of course, Tyr is present as well. Watch this next scene, pay close attention to Tyr's behavior. Ask yourself, why is Odin choosing to behave in this way?
I really
Okay,
should
here
have
it is.
upgraded this before
Over. No thanks
putting.
to you.
What is the choice?
Kratos. Has the runaway returned and brought all this with him?
It's all my fault.
The Hellwalkers, they're everywhere.
I mean,
Everywhere.
That is not your fault.
Yes, it is. There was a wolf in hell.
okay, wow, that is a lot of durability.
And I set
Yeah,
it
I
free.
definitely
I
should
thought
have.
that it's gone.
Big bleeder fuckluck, you see gone.
Gone. Who freaked gone? That's madness. Surely not you, young one.
If the Hound of Hell is loose, he'll chew through the fabric of the realms. Hellwalkers are just the beginning. What were you thinking?
Ah, this is a fuck up of not insignificant proportions.
What would drive you to such mischief? Is this Loki's doing?
Choice has made a mistake. But we
After the battle is already over, Tyr exits the house, offering no explanation for his absence. Of course, the true reason for his tardiness is that he was busy being Odin in Asgard just minutes ago. Notice how aggressive Tyr is towards Atreus in this scene. He calls him the runaway, accuses him of causing the disaster, before these characters have any reason to suspect that Atreus has anything to do with it. When Atreus reveals that he released Garm, Tyr joins everyone else in harshly condemning the boy. He's pretty aggressive about it, actually. I think this is a miscalculation on Odin's part. He is trying to regain Kratos' trust, and since he thinks that the father is going to be angry with the son, he pretends to be angry too. But Tyr does not really understand Kratos' character. He believes that Kratos is driven by anger, but that's not true. Kratos is actually driven by his love for his son, and so Tyr's attempt to ingratiate himself with his enemy fails yet again. Odin constantly underestimates and misunderstands Kratos' nature and motivations, and that is why he ultimately fails. Another small detail I noticed while editing this video is that Kratos first hands Mimir to Tyr, which makes sense. They're old friends. Tyr should be happy to carry the head around. But Tyr does not react at all. He shows no interest. And instead, it is Freya, someone who doesn't like the smartest man in the world at all, who accepts the extra baggage. Just one more little inconsistency in Tyr's behavior that our heroes fail to take notice of. After Kratos and Atreus return from their wolf hunting adventure, Tyr makes his biggest slip yet, more than ever before. Through his behavior, he reveals what Odin truly cares about. Also, while rewatching the scene, I noticed something that I never noticed before. There's an explanation for a plot hole here that I never recognized, so let's watch it together.
Here's what he cares about most. More than Ragnarok or anything. Is this mask. Anyone recognize it?
That thing? Oh, forget it. He's been faffing around with that since before I knew him. To be honest, I thought the Giants were just having a laugh with that one.
Okay, fine. No. You're wrong. This mask is no fraud. Giants didn't make it, and only a few of them ever glimpsed it in their visions. They never knew its origin, but some believed it was a way to gaze into the secrets of creation itself.
Is it an oracle?
Much. Imagine becoming one with the source of infinite knowledge. This is why Odin tortured me.
Is Heimdall on focus or not?
Regret our fate.
Then I'm going back to Valheim. If we're not taking the fight to Odin, I should help my brother stand against him.
Join them.
Alright, so Odin is absolutely obsessed with this mask. He cares more about learning its secrets than he cares about anything else in the world. He is so obsessed that, even while disguised as Tyr and a mere glimpse of a drawing, he cannot help but launch into a zealous monologue over its mysteries. More than ever before, this is Tyr revealing who he truly is. But let's talk about that plot hole I mentioned before. Something I was always confused about was Kratos' confrontation with Heimdall and Valheim. It just seemed so random to me. Like, what is Heimdall doing here? Why would Odin make the mistake of sending Heimdall into Kratos' path? And it is a huge mistake. This has terrible consequences for Odin. He loses his top lieutenant and hands his enemies a key to unlock Asgard's defenses. Way back in my video examining Heimdall's character, I hypothesized that maybe Heimdall had decided on his own, without orders from Odin, to travel to Vanaheim. That this confrontation was a result of his own vanity, and not a mistake on the part of Odin. But after a close rewatch of this scene, I've changed my mind. In this scene, Freya splits apart from the group and travels alone to Vanaheim. Kratos does not go with her, at least not yet. Notice that when Kratos tells Atreus that they will follow her, he says it under his breath so that only Atreus can hear his words, meaning that Odin did not hear that part. He does not know that Kratos will soon be traveling to Vanaheim too. Odin, while in disguise, watches the split happen and sees an opportunity. His enemies have split into two groups, weakening themselves. This is his chance to kill or capture both Freya and her brother without Kratos interfering. That is why he immediately sent Heimdall to Vanaheim, setting up his disastrous confrontation with Kratos. The next scene we're going to watch takes place directly after the death of Heimdall, and through Tyr we will get to see Odin's reaction to that news. Here it is.
Is it true? Heimdall's dead. I can't believe it. There's no stopping it now. Odin swore peace only so long as you spilled no more Aesir blood.
I refuse that deal.
Get me honored.
But what? You and I know better than anyone that Odin's promises never last. We have the advantage now. It's time to bring him down.
No.
None of you understand what's coming. Odin's vengeance will be his only concern.
Not his only concern. Max, whatever knowledge it unlocks, that's what Odin wants more than anything. If I go back to Asgard,
Back. Do not ask me to triggers again.
He's at risk where he stands, Kratos. We all are.
from a tactical perspective, am I wrong?
I don't much like it, but it is our best play. Dividing Odin's focus would buy us time.
And give us a pair of eyes in the enemy's inner sanctum.
But if there is truly a source of infinite knowledge,
There's a way to take out.
Once he has what he needs from you.
All of Tyr's words here are totally disingenuous and manipulative. He is attempting to twist the blame for Heimdall's death away from the Aesir and pin it on Kratos. Odin's offer of a truce was never anything more than a self-serving attempt to manipulate his enemies into doing his bidding. The real Tyr should know that. Tyr is attempting to frighten them, to make them fear Odin's vengeance. He is also the first person in the room to voice support for Atreus' plan to return to Asgard. In fact, it seems as if Tyr completely loses all concern for Odin's vengeance as soon as the possibility of Atreus returning to Asgard is mentioned. And there is some hilarious irony in Tyr speaking the line, "and give us a pair of eyes in the enemy's inner sanctum," which is of course exactly what he has been doing this entire time. The beginning of the scene, one of the first things Tyr says in response to the death of Heimdall is, "I can't believe it." And I think this is one of the first times Odin is actually speaking the truth. I bet he really can't believe it. You can hear the shock in his voice. He didn't think Kratos actually had the power to defeat the seemingly invulnerable Heimdall, his top lieutenant, one of the most dangerous and most powerful gods ever in a series famous for its incredibly dangerous and powerful gods. This may be the first time he realizes just how dangerous Kratos really is. The first time he realizes that he could actually lose this thing. Moving forward, the next time we see Tyr is also the last time we see Tyr, or at least this version of Tyr. This is the scene where he makes his last mistake, when someone finally points out that, hey, nothing this guy is saying makes any sense. First, let's watch Tyr's reaction to the return of Atreus.
You're back. Are you okay?
I'm fine. Just hope unlocking this thing was worth the cost.
I have it. What did it show you?
Didn't get to use it. They found out about Heimdall. I had to run. But at least Odin can't use it either.
You didn't get any answers from the mask. All you've done is steal Odin's greatest treasure. Just after your father's killed his most loyal ally. None of us are safe. Even here.
So we have no choice. We find Surtur, sound Galahorn, and bring Odin to justice. Now.
You'd incinerate every soul in Asgard and call it self-defense.
Does he ever suggest plans or just crap on everyone else's?
The obvious plan is staring you in the face. We don't need Odin to use this. We can slip into Asgard and do it ourselves right under his nose. We gain the knowledge we need to shatter this prophecy of war once and for all. Except begging your pardon, you don't have a way into Asgard.
This occurs only minutes after Atreus escaped with the mask, which must have been a terrible and desperate moment for Odin. He must have rushed back into his deer disguise and back into the broom closet as quickly as possible. And notice the first thing he asks when he gets out. You have it. And what did it show you? Listen to how breathless his voice is, how excited he is. He literally cannot wait to find out what that mask will reveal. Look at the way he reaches after Atreus when the kid walks away. It must be taking all of Odin's powers of self-control to keep himself from snatching that mask out of Atreus' hands. The thing he has been working for hundreds of years is right in front of him, and he is not able to actually touch it without arousing suspicion. It must be excruciating for him. I also really like Freyr's comment here. Does he ever suggest plans or just crap on everyone else's? And it's a good question. What plan has Tyr ever suggested? All he ever does is tell everyone else to sit and wait to do nothing. And these characters are getting sick of it. The plan Tyr does suggest here is completely insane. Risk everything by sneaking into Asgard to use the mask before Odin does? It would never work. They could never get past Asgard's defenses without Odin noticing. This will always end in
That's
violence.
worthless.
The true reason for this absurd suggestion is that Odin is getting desperate. He wants that mask, and he wants it now. And he's not willing to be patient anymore. Instead of doing the smart thing and sitting back and waiting for the right opportunity to come along so he can snatch it, he is going to try something drastic. He is going to take a huge risk. And that is what happens in the next scene. Here it is.
All we need is a way to Asgard.
I burden to you all. I know you've questioned why you pulled me out of that hole. I have too. It's clear now. This is what I'm needed for. This is my purpose. One last time, I will pick up the spear.
Wait, what? Cabbage rolls?
Lead it to Asgard.
Excuse me. But if you got a way to Asgard, where's that idea of getting this whole fucking wire? Relax.
You would have gotten us all killed. And we needed to give Loki time to find his destiny. It's all meant to this.
If we can get inside, I'm going after Odin.
Then we'll not stuck in. We can do both.
Spot on, brother. If the mask doesn't give us an out, we'll fill out that drop on him. Works for me.
Let's do it then, and quickly, before he sees us coming.
Does hate surprises.
Slow down, you damn spruce. I don't want to hear details on this. Wait till that's going.
It's an ancient path. We can't reach it from here.
What?
You collect my things and I'll show you.
Wait, yeah. Hey, oh, with that right. That belongs to the kid. He earned it. All you've done was make passable dirt soup.
Rob, it's okay.
No, it ain't. This ain't right. All the pieces ain't welded together true. Like, what would you call it? Okay. You ain't talking. Shut up.
Okay, so ignoring the terrible tragedy of watching one of our favorite characters get murdered.
What the hey, 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 hey!
Speech. But everyone has just just sort of sitting around, staring at each other, like, what? Particularly rare and
This is my livestock!
he just sort of shrugs his shoulders and looks around like, what are you zeroing in to this second? What Tyr just did was completely flip-flop, proclaimed the exact opposite of everything he's been saying for the entire game. This whole time, Tyr has been saying, no, don't fight Odin, don't do anything, just sit around and eat soup with me, guys, come on! And now, all of a sudden, he's completely changed his mind, wants to do something drastic and crazy. At first, everyone is surprised, but then they all start to go along with it, like a bunch of doofuses. None of them realizes how suspicious this is, except for Brock. In my video on Brock's character, I spent a lot of time discussing why it had to be him who did this, so I won't repeat any of that here. Stay focused on Tyr. For a single moment, Odin thinks he's gotten away with this. He picks up the mask without anyone noticing and starts walking away. Going to dip into his broom closet, use the portal to Asgard he's set up there, and escape. He will have finally gotten the thing he's always wanted. Infinite knowledge. And all of these dopes were too stupid to stop him. But Odin made a mistake. As Tyr, he has spent most of his time sitting in the background and observing his enemy, carefully waiting for his opportunities to strike, never drawing too much attention to himself, always retreating when confronted. But here in this final scene, in order to get what he wants right now without waiting, he makes himself the star of the show, the center of attention. And in that spotlight, it was inevitable that someone was going to notice that his shit stinks. As I already discussed earlier, his greatest flaw, the one that destroys him, is Odin's impatience. He is too impatient to wait for the right opportunity to steal the mask. And he is too impatient to put up with Brock's nagging questions. He gets irritated, loses control over his temper, and lashes out, ruining his disguise, losing the mask, and giving his enemies a really compelling reason to seek his destruction in the process. Odin's time in disguise is fascinating. At times, it is perfect. No one ever suspects a thing. He gains so much intelligence on his enemies and their plans. He is able to sow conflict between allies. However, on the other hand, the intelligence he gathers causes him to make two fatal mistakes, sending Heimdall to his death in Vanaheim and murdering Brock. His attempts at manipulating Kratos and Freya fail over and over again. His arguments for peace are hollow and unconvincing in the face of Odin's reign of terror. I think that moment when Tyr transforms into Odin, when it's revealed that Tyr has been Odin the entire time, that's going to go down as one of the most shocking twists in the history of video game stories. That disguise was a dramatic and risky plan that almost worked. Odin almost got everything he always wanted. But when you rewatch all these cutscenes, what you see is a character who cannot help but be himself. He cannot help but reveal his true motivations and obsessions again and again. At the end of the game, in his final moments, Atreus begs Odin to just make a different choice, to do anything else. And Odin cannot. He never could. And his failed attempts at pretending to be Tyr are perhaps the most damning proof of his inability to change.
You know, I really don't need the ender chest on my main inventory. Oh no. Why am I stupid? Where's the bell for this place? I thought I drank the milk and got rid of my fucking bullshit. guess we're doing this. Give me a moment. Hold on. I wasn't prepared for an epic fight. Ever. I was just gonna visit the fucking shit and go to bed, because it's late, but... In the face, look into my eyes. Now tell me the things you're blabbing about behind my back. The tenacity I hold is hard to break down. Too late for apologies, it's going down now. I'm aware I can manipulate the way raids spawn if I lower my render distance, but the first wave's already happening. Where are they? HP of the raid is still going down. What the fuck is going on? Oh, hey, look. There's a waste on here. I already placed my own though, so I guess I'll just take this. I can't take this seriously. Well, I just gotta wait. The next wave will begin.
CGB! Welcome back once again. You're back and a glutton for punishment. I thought after last episode, buddy, I thought we were going to end the series. Because last episode, I think you left with me a shattered man. Agree? No. You know what? I don't agree. And I am going to practice the art of absolutely pretending that never happened. Okay. I don't think anybody watched it. I'm pretty sure nobody would watch it. Why would they? There's nothing to see there. Nothing else. Like, today, I specifically told my followers on Twitter and YouTube to never watch that video. So I'm pretty sure not a single soul watched that video. Just a comment.
Are you fine just sitting there? Everyone else is panicking?
Because they don't listen to us, okay? That's what being an influencer is. You win every time. So one thing that I picked up on from our previous episode that found it very fascinating that in Yu-Gi-Oh! We have a lot of different zero interactions. Cards that can be even on the very first turn of the game. I'm familiar with Magic the Gathering. You have some cards that also do that as well. Cards will, for example, just things like that. We have a million different forms of wills in our story. Remember, Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything's free. So I thought it would be fun to pick up, we call them colloquially called anthems. The reason for that is because, although they are not necessarily abstract cards by name, they are cards Also, if the card has ever served any time on the sound. It sounds familiar, but I can't recall a single time I've done a video like this. Not at all. Let's see what happens. Let's start with the first one, and make it easy. For those watching, we're going to be going through chronological order. So we're going to start with some TV Crow. I'm sorry, this is a very small monster. I'm confused already. This is a level 1, 100 attack, 100 defense. What's your read back? That'll be I didn't know they made them this small. Quick effect, you can discard this card to the graveyard. Then target one card in your opponent's graveyard to banish that target. So just any time. Yeah. You just discard this anytime to banish one card from a graveyard. From your opponent's. Okay. If they try to... So, yeah, it doesn't even have to be on the first turn. You probably never play this. You probably, as the creature, like, ever. Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And, so if they try to use any graveyard immunity, this is like, I will discard this, get rid of that one thing. And then they can't do the thing they were trying to do. Surely Magic has a thing. Sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the weird thing about Magic is I'm looking at this card, and I'm like, okay, I can see why that's useful, because graveyards do stuff. In Magic, there are many analogs to a card like this. Even some of them are free. Okay, that's something I don't hear very often in Magic. Yeah, in a way, that there's one that's free. And the cards, like, have roles, but the weird thing is, all of them do more than this. This is nothing but drop a card to banish card from graveyard. All of the cards I'm thinking of in Magic are banish card from graveyard, draw a card. Banish card from graveyard, and also banish all other copies of that card from hand and graveyard, you know? Or banish card, gain 3 life. Like, they all have more. They all come with more. This card would be okay, but not good. And in eternal formats would be pushed out by other cards that are perfectly fine and healthy and encouraged in the format. So this would not see magical play, I don't think, at all. And, yeah.
Okay, so the Naga isn't attacking me right now. Okay, so the setting makes it so they attack at night, similar to spiders, which is very acceptable, I think.
This is like the only way to get this effect. Remember, none of them have been banned. So your choice is between was it ever restricted or is it not restricted? So no ban. So it's 50-50. I feel like you should let me call something banned anyway. If you want to. If you want to just actively get it wrong, be like, yes. No, okay. There's no way this works out this way. I don't think so. I think that you've already mentioned that there's a lot of these effects. A lot of them. And there's got to be one that does this right. So I'm going to say, no, this card probably, I mean, if it sees play, it's only because there aren't many options for this effect. Sure. And you think it's bad by what you're analyzing based on, like, Magic analogs and such. Compared to the cards in Magic, this is bad. In Yu-Gi-Oh!, I don't have the context of how many options you have, but if there are any other options that give something on top of this, I would say that. Crow, this might shock you. So this was one of the very first hand traps in Yu-Gi-Oh! There was a few that predated this, but I will say for the most part, those were...
Hey, these are rice.
They were not particularly good, let's say. So this was not the first time there was a discard this card or something. But this was the first one that was probably most useful. This card is quite good. I want to say this card was 2006, 2005. So 4 years ago, like Spence. And this might shock you. This card still sees play today. So when you were talking about Magic cards, like a card that does this and it draws a card and does something else, on Yu-Gi-Oh! Standards, that would be crazy. Now, there are other cards that go after the graveyard. I'm not saying Crow is the only card that does this. But, for what it's worth, this is like maybe one of the best cards at hitting the graveyard specifically, because it's not that big card. I don't believe there are many other cards that are similar to Crow in this way. And again, because you are allowed to do this on your opponent's turn 1, depending on the type of deck you play, you know, the graveyard. And DD Crow can actually be an asshole. A lot of instances. So it has been played ever since. But card that will go into on a set. But you're correct. It was never limited at all. So very different. -1 is card economy, but it can actually be very strong play stop with it. So by using energy throw,
That's kind of wild. Yeah, okay. The number of cards I want to show you now for Magic that mess with you have no idea. Holy crap.
If DD Crow said banish an opponent's card, draw a card, that would be like probably a 3 of an ever. Like just because it cycled it. That would be nuts. That would be so good. Alright, here's your next one.
Oh, yeah. Honest. Oh, good. This card is me.
I was gonna say it's me, because I would never just
No. It's I play honest Magic. Nothing broken. Nothing weird. Okay, I need a bigger version of this.
You know what?
Oh god, I do look like this person. My legs in particular have this many muscles.
I fucking give up.
So, let's see. Attack is 1100, defense is 1900.
You people are hopeless.
During your main phase, turn this card from the field. Okay.
I
During either play
have things to do.
Light monster control battles, you can send this card or hand to the graveyard. That monster gains attack equal to the attack.
Let me look at what happens if our raid fails.
Okay. What the hell is that? Alright, we go again. To return this card from field again. I'm guessing that's just bonus stuff. If you want to put this out, then punch with it, then you bring it back, and then during other damage step, probably a light. It has to be a light monster. You discard this. You gain attack equal to the opponent's monster, so you win the fight, right?
Correct.
Probably.
Well,
yeah,
most of the time, if not always, win the fight.
Is Yu-Gi-Oh! The game where everything has trample, where the attack goes over to the opponent?
Yes. If the monsters are in attack defense position, keep saying that basically.
Yep.
So for instance, I'll give you an example here. If my 100 attack DD Crow, well, not a light monster, probably a bad example, but let's say DD Crow is light. If my 100 attack light DD Crow attacked your 3000 attack Blue Eyes White Dragon, if I drop Honest, that DD Crow gains 3000 attack to 3100 attack and kills Blue Eyes White Dragon.
Lore-wise, how does that work? How does Honest, this fairy, be like, yo, that crow is now bigger than that dragon? Ta-da! How does that work? It doesn't work. Whatever. This card is weird, dude. It's so weird.
Cool, huh?
I guess.
You seem convinced.
I don't know. Combat tricks, I hate those.
Okay.
They require creatures. I hate those too.
Okay.
I guess it's hard to see. I mean, the example you gave is awesome, and I imagine that.
Okay, let me.
It does mean that you're attacking so they see why not just run bigger? Okay. So the other thing that's interesting about it is the white monster, and friendly limited exposure, but in other when something other than dark monsters have the benefit. So the one monster like, okay, type It probably makes combat a nightmare.
Yep.
And that's true.
Okay, apparently I just need to wait 40 minutes.
Is that bad enough? It sounds like
48,000 ticks. In other words, in-game time. Pretty much an entire day. 2 days by default.
So, I don't know. I think that you want your combat to be more than just straightforward punches and kicks. You want tricks. But
Just gotta wait until nighttime, I guess.
this
might be the worst trick.
And then the pillagers will just decide to not bother. I mean, they're already not fucking bothering.
Yeah, I would never show you a fight trick. No, I wouldn't. Did this card get restricted? You're probably gonna tell me yes. I don't see it, so I'm playing the meta game. I'm trying to figure out if you're gonna show me 2 buying cards right in a row up front. And you know what? I think you think that the last video would get in my head. Well, it doesn't. I am mentally resilient. My fortitude is amazing, and my brain acts like that of a goldfish. There was no last video. So, nah, this card's fine. This card wasn't restricted. This card's fine. Yeah. It was restricted. Yeah. So let me give you some context here. Once again, I've been going chronologically, so these are some of the older cards. Honest was released in a set called Light of Destruction, vaguely enough, which provided a lot of light-focused support for the game. They mentioned how typically in the videos, Dark is the best supported attribute, and that is the case, yes. But Light is probably second in line, and I'm not. When it comes to Honest specifically, there have been several light archetypes that throughout history have had. This is like similar to the color pie saying where this is a reason to play light focused decks, and it took Yu-Gi-Oh a bit of time to get to the point of like starting to separate things by tribal and time attribute things like that to give chaos to get people away from playing best stuff. And so this was a payoff for playing light. And Honest is a menace. Anytime you go up against a light deck, there was always that lingering fear of fuck. If I just attack and get Honest, I'm losing. It's basically removal, right? And it's very cool because it's on the body, and you can use the body, like you said, you can summon it, poke, back to hand. Now your opponent knows you have it, so now they're like, how do I actually deal with this card? Right? It's obviously the surprise that you don't know you have it, but yeah, this card is fine. This card is unplayable, it's just really slow. But in old Yu-Gi-Oh, this card wasn't absolute. And people to this day are still scarred by the fact that this card has an unknown probation honestly. How long was it restricted?
A few years, actually. It took some time, and then eventually the format, the game just sped up so much that it really just had like a combat trick like this, which is too situational, and also during the times like so it made the it was very early on.
That's about right. Makes sense.
Next up, Dark Force.
Battle Vader. It's a bundle.
This is a 0 attack and 0 defense. It's a card.
It's a card. It's speed. When an opponent's monster declares a direct attack, you can special summon this card from your hand. Then end the battle phase. If summoned this way, banish it when it leaves the field. Banish it when it leaves the field. Okay. They're just saying, when you're gone, don't come back. Opponent's monster start from end the battle phase. So it's a fog. In Magic, that's what we call a fog. They're going to just no battle this turn. But for free, no battle. Okay. I guess. Well, how would this even matter? Because it's a 0.
Tell us.
I guess you have something to tribute summon?
Okay. You're putting it together.
Yeah, you got body. You got this winged body, I guess. Okay. Yeah. Something. It's better than nothing. I hope that it's not analog to like the magic cards. Magic cards that just like negate a combat phase are in many cases not what you want. Not very good either. How important is that in Yu-Gi-Oh? Because I feel like in Yu-Gi-Oh, extra turns, like the piece of the game is probably really fast, given that things are going to attack the turn they come down. So getting an extra turn is a huge swing, right? So I mean, you're a turn behind, the opponent's about to murder you, you get an extra turn, you beat them. Winning a race is probably huge. And I guess in my mind, in that world, it's way better than in Magic. In that case, are 3 of these being lethal? It's a dark monster, we know that that's the popular type. Are 3 of these in every deck forever in an eternal format, fine. The card would have to be legitimate bad. It doesn't seem bad. It seems closer to Time Walk, which in Magic is busted. It seems closer like getting an extra turn, because it seems like most of the win cons, except for brief periods of time, some of the things that you showed me are punching face. And some of the things that you showed me that are like burning the opponent's face were banned. None of these were banned. So the question is, the first question is it actually good? It seems good. It's better than a fog effect. Second question is restricted. If they tolerate 3 of these in every dark deck for a long time, if we're saying it's good, it's good. I imagine that this is a card, when legal as a 3-of, is much worse than legal as a 1-of. Okay. Because you can do it again, and again, and again. And if your opponent just drew 3 battle faders, oh god. What a disgustingly horrible story. But if you both do 3 battle faders, I battle fade, I battle fade, I battle fade, I battle fade, I battle fade. Dude, this is the world that they might have lived in. If we're saying the card is good, and if I'm right about that, I'm not sure I am, but I feel like I am. So I'm going to say this card got restricted. I think this is a card where a restriction makes sense. Because if, like, you can negate 1 combat and then counter swing and win, in a way it's like, hat, plan for it, put it in my deck, played to it, made it happen. And on the other hand, if you're like, oh, well, drew 3 of them, just make opponent miserable and sit there the whole time, hell on earth. Absolute hell on earth. So I'm going to say Battle Faders are a restricted card.
I don't like it.
Yep, that's it.
This card's fine. This card was never restricted. So,
Really?
yeah, so Battle Fader is a perfectly fine card. It actually, you got it where that was the main application of this card. Again, somewhat older card, but it has seen some play in somewhat modern Yu-Gi-Oh, but very rarely, I would say, is just well, the best application for this, especially when tribute summoning was prominent, there's an archetype of monsters called Monarchs. The Monarchs are known for tribute summons, and they tribute summon them, they have very powerful. And Battle Fader slotted its way into these types of decks because not only does it buy you next turn if you're on the back foot, but it also gives you a monster that on the next turn you now contribute some of that monster for one of the Monarchs or one of the speed pages. So that's where Battle Fader initially found its home, and this isn't a bad card by any means. So it's a generally like okay card. It's very just situational on like the way the format is, the way the decks are, but for the most part, it's just kind of a card that you'd rather have something that's like really going to stop your opponent versus this, because if you don't have something for like something for Battle Fader loses a lot of its value. Otherwise, it's just doing this, just on the field, not doing anything. And that's kind of one of the problems with it. And also, you'd rather just have more proactive cards, because it doesn't have to be a direct attack. So an attack on the monster is not Battle Fader, but once they attack it directly, then you can. So it's kind of a clunky card. A lot of like burn and stall decks with like all win conditions, like Battle Fader, and they get like their alternate win condition. But just like an open card, kind of annoying to see it, but it's not like, oh, this is a great card.
Fair.
Right.
I should have stuck to the Magic. Like,
Should have. As soon as you started going down, I was giggling. Like, oh my god. I was like, he's gonna
It felt like stopping the combat would be way better in a faster tempo game, but yeah, it's still it's a bad,
it's contextual.
it's kind of a weak critter.
I'm gonna warn you, this has a lot of text, but
No, do we have to? Can I just not read it and just flip a coin? Gores, Emissary of Darkness, level 7 Dark Monster, attack 2700, defense 2500, beat the deck. Oh god.
you do.
When you take damage from a card your opponent controls, you can special summon this card from your hand. You must control no cards, activate, and to resolve this effect. When special summoned this way, activate the appropriate effect based on the type of damage. If it's battle damage, special summon 1 Emissary of Darkness token, your type, light, level 7, attack defense if attack, and defense are each equal to the amount of vandal damage you took. Effect damage, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the amount of damage you took.
Make sense?
Oh.
You're such a good one.
Oh no, I've got this so much. I've got this. This card is trash.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's see if I can get a reaction. Alright. Reaction. You make it laugh. Here's the thing I have about this card is I take so that's weird. I mean, if you have to control a thing, that's why I understand. That card's in hand. Now, wondering, like, what's the context that just don't have?
The fuck? A fucking wandering.
Most of the time, where it seems to me that they have to put out trap cards and no cards. It seems like everything is not control deck to deck. You can have lots of spells. Like, better. Copy and copy. Typically, that's one.
Ravager meat.
I have to understand how often how much spell is the type of game where at the end battle phase you know everything proponent to try to like head and then on their turn area clean up everything out end of their turn for attacks and have nothing have one two goes through and the person passes on their like is that you know because that's how some games that's how Hearthstone it's you just want to leave them I mean I think that might just be anyway yeah but like it just really depends I would say especially fucking having like maybe 1 or 2 monsters on the that would be uncommon. You might try to like get a monster at macro. It really just kind of market. You might want card, a shot, out. Like, so there's a lot of it's kind of hard. The card kills. I think, and for everybody who's had like that I kill them. Like drop. There's some common, like, say, like a strategy, like they don't ask the opponent. If they don't smash you, you're like, yeah, you did. I don't know, so, like, it's the situation kind of about the how do you
Are we actually fighting now? What the fuck? And of course, the raid bar didn't fucking do jack shit. Just a little longer.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Magnus, and I welcome you guys back to Analysis, a series where we take a look at things from Adult Wars. Okay, we're checking out that beat change. Used to be the strongest vehicle and the most first one until it was later eclipsed by the tank and the mecha tank. I would say that to this day, the medium tank remains an incredibly useful vehicle. It is extremely important knowing when to decide when to go losses, and if you pay attention to my replay commentary says that is one of the criticisms I have to get, that I don't do video things at the right moment, so that I don't utilize them correctly when they're built. So this is going to be an incredibly video. For those of you wondering what the source here, these are advice I've gotten from very highly ranked players. First, let's take a look at the tank spaces. Talk about what it's as a unit. Of course, the medium tank, it may just seem like a bigger version of the tank, but it's so much more than that. It has some very important goals. Now, as for its price, it will cost more than twice as much as a regular tank. It costs 16,000. It's very expensive. However, just because it's worth 16,000 doesn't mean that you can just churn one out as soon as you reach that goal. I would say that in order to comfortably build medium tanks, you probably need an income of about 80,000. The reason behind that is, of course, you don't want to have high bases, so in order to comfortably build a mega tank, you'll likely have a base, which is very bad. You need to build a medium tank into infantry, which will cost you 80,000, and then you might have to I would say like 18 to 19,000, maybe 20,000 income is when you comfortably start to tech up, as they call it. That is an expression that the Cosmos pros. Teching up basically means that you are now taking the match into the late game and you're building more expensive units. Now, the early game, you'll usually see the less expensive vehicles flowing around like tanks, arms, artillery, and then as the income gets higher and the match progresses into a more advanced stage, both players will tech up and start building the more expensive units like medium and the aircraft. But knowing when to tech up is extremely important. Some people, I would say, the most common beginner mistake that people make is that they don't tech up quickly enough. They tend to remain on building tanks, battle bunkers, and the other cheap units because they simply don't want to invest most of their money in one. Now, medium tank, as I said, it looks like just a bigger version of the tank, but it is a lot more than that. It is a lot less mobile than the tank. The tank has 6 moves and the medium tank has 5, so it's a lot slower. It's not very good at getting where you want it to be. It also has a very low supply of fuel. So the medium tank is actually pretty liable to run out of gas, especially if you go up against Drake, who drains your fuel. Against a couple of tsunamis, the medium tank will often be immobilized if you don't place them in the city where you have a secret company. It doesn't pass 5 shots though. 8 shots usually not run out of ammo. Not something I would be very worried about. However, one thing that is very troublesome with player 12 is that it is completely blind on its own. It has one vision. It cannot see shit. So it will just get trapped on its own. You need recons or infantry in city or cities something. Or you need infantries in mountains to scout out the path. Or else one vision is awful. So when going up against tanks in fog, you can actually utilize a strategy of targeting the enemy's recons and trying to shoot infantry in mountains, so that the medium tank just becomes blind and does other moves. So yeah, you can definitely shut down a medium tank by taking eyes. Now, maybe the most useful thing a medium tank is used for is wall breaking. Now, wall breaking refers to being able to kill a unit in one shot and then progress through and target the units in the back. This is extremely important to do because in most Advanced Wars games, your enemy will place their units in kind of like a wall formation, and they'll have their squishy units in the back. And then firepower is king because having above or reaching the 100% firepower mark means that you can safely wall break and then bust through their wall, which is important if you want to go on the offensive. Now, medium tanks can wall break infantry on roads without any firepower increases, which is very nice. Now, as always, while I am showing this as Jess, I have turned firepower bonuses off, so she doesn't get the 10% firepower increase. But every CO in the game, except for those with the firepower decrease, can do this. Every CO will be able to do 105% damage against infantry, so they can always wall break infantry as long as they're on roads. They can also sometimes wall break infantry when they're on flanks. They do 94% damage. So this becomes a coin flip. As you all know, in Advanced Wars there's a 0 to 9% luck modifier, meaning that it's a bit of a coin
It's been too long. I think the raids are currently bugged or something. I'm just gonna leave and hope for the best.
You're flying Advanced Wars by weapon, you have comp power, for example. Then your medium tanks can safely wall break infantry on flanks, which is very nice. If you don't have firepower increases, it becomes a coin flip, and as we see over here, we failed it. So if I was relying on killing this infantry to get to a unit in the back, then we'd be in trouble right now. Medium tanks cannot interrupt captures on their own, obviously. It's quite hard to do, actually. Even a max medium tank cannot safely do this. You need a big firepower increase in order to interrupt a cap on your own. But if you're using your medium tanks to interrupt caps, then you're probably not utilizing them correctly. That being said, if it's the only thing they can do, then of course you should go ahead and do it. But as I've been criticized for before, you shouldn't really send your medium tanks around and take out infantry. They should be in the center of the combat, where they're most useful. If you remember my game versus Humpelmon in the tournament, I took one of my medium tanks and instead of sending it into the center, I had to go around the outer edges of the screen and hunt infantry, which is very tempting. I mean, can almost kill an infantry in a single turn, which is very nice. But it also means that the medium tank is basically just a glorified recon.
Oh yeah, the melons.
And one of the biggest reasons you would have to build a medium tank is when your opponent has tanks.
I haven't started a melon patch yet.
Once you see 3 tanks on the board, that's your cue to build a medium tank. Instead of building a 4th tank and then having your opponent counter with a 4th tank of their own, and there's 5 tanks, 6 tanks, 7 tanks. Whenever you see 3 tanks tanked together, that is your cue to build a medium tank. Of course, if you can afford it, that is. You should rush it out if you only have 16,000 and your base is idle. But once you get a medium tank into the center of the fray, all these tanks will now be zoned out, because medium tanks absolutely decimate normal. They do 85% base damage, so they can't wall break tanks unless you have a very big firepower increase. I do believe Max can do it, and I do believe Jess with a comp tower can do it. But it is very hard to do otherwise. But you're not really building medium tanks to wall break tanks. You're building them to kill tanks. They counter tank. They hard counter tanks. They do extremely well against them. Here, I did show this in my tank video, but here's a simulation of 4 tanks getting the first flank on a medium tank out on the road, which is like the dream scenario. This will practically never happen. And as you can see, even though these tanks have a combined value of 28,000, which is more than a Neo tank, they're not doing great against this tank at all. And again, this is the best possible situation they can do. Or get the first tank, and the medium tank is completely unprotected, and still, they are not extremely effective against the medium tank. So, I would go as far as to say that medium tanks are the hard counter tanks. They do amazing against them. So, whenever a medium tank is out on the field, tanks kind of have to retreat, they get zoned out, and the match will progress into the late game. So yeah, that's a good rule of thumb. You see 3 tanks together in one spot and you can afford it, that's when you attack up to medium tanks. And get them into the center. Don't have them go around on the fringes of the battlefield and shoot infantry. That's a very bad way to utilize them. You want them in the center of the attention where they can do the most damage. Now, here's a simulation with mechs, by the way. I would just like to point out that mechs are also an awful for the medium tanks. While mechs are extremely, they're extremely cheap, and they actually do as much damage to medium tanks as tanks do. It's kind of funny. So it's definitely more cost effective. I mean, if you can get a lot of mechs to strike the medium tank, then they actually do better than the mechs cost effective wise. But the simulation that I'm showing, it's never going to happen. I'm just going to say this right away. Like, you'll never get to surround the medium tank with mechs. Now, if you do, well, maybe they can do something. But overall, I wouldn't say mechs are fantastic against medium tanks. More often than not, they'll just get killed. However, how does the medium tank measure up with the Neo tank? Well, if they get to strike the medium or the Neo tank out in the open, they actually do sort of okay. But this will almost never happen because the Neo tank is faster than the medium tank. And if the Neo tank is on defensive terrain, you can just forget about it. More often than not, the Neo tank will actually force strike the medium tank, and I would have to go as far as to say that they hard counter medium tanks in this way. Because of their extra movement, they'll usually get the first strike. Maybe not in fog, but definitely out of fog. So if you see your opponent building Neo tanks, you do not want to build medium tanks. Neo tanks will shut down medium tanks pretty hard. So it's kind of like, it's not even a weapon triangle, it's just Neo tanks counter medium tanks counter tanks. It's really that simple. Now, the medium tank does have the ability to wall break a number of vehicles. It can one-shot recons, and again, it actually does the same damage to most vehicles in the game as it does to infantry. So again, as long as they're on roads and maybe on lights, if you have a small firepower increase, but the medium tank can actually wall break a lot of different vehicles, which is very nice. And most advanced by web maps, you will usually have a comp tower, so this becomes even more reliable. So medium tanks actually become pretty good wall breakers against most vehicles in the game. Being able to wall break is extremely important, as you know, because in almost every single competitive Advanced Wars match, you will see a wall of enemies in front of you, and you can either attempt to stall, or you can attempt to break through them. And well, if you're being attacked, then most likely you will have to wall break at some point. So the medium tank is pretty good for that. However, the medium tank is quite vulnerable to indirect fire, and takes 55%
This wasn't even worth it.
Rockets out in the open. If the medium tank is on defensive cover, it takes a little bit less, but most of the time, medium tanks are like indirect magnets. They will get target fired by every indirect on the enemy side because they're so expansive. So, I would say indirects are a pretty good counter to medium tanks, especially considering the medium tank is quite slow. I like to use medium tanks in conjunction with other lighter vehicles. Basically, if you want to target the vehicle from the back, usually what I do, I use the medium tanks to full break the front, and then I move in with recons and tanks to pick up their targets in the back. That's usually how I typically use it anyway. And I will say that if you're playing with a CO with a movement increase like Adder or Jess, then they become a lot better. Because of course one of the biggest problems with them is that they're quite slow, so it's not always easy to get them. So that extra 1 or 2 points of movement will really make them better. Bombers shut down medium tanks pretty hard. They do 95% base damage to them, so there's a coin flip whether they kill them on roads or not. And on planes, they will kill them with a slight firepower increase. Battlecopters don't do a lot of damage to medium tanks, but it is still a pretty hard engagement for the medium tank to take. And if there are multiple battlecopters, they will usually whittle down the medium tank pretty fast. Medium tank can't really do much back to the battlecopter, so while they don't take a lot of damage, it's still a losing engagement. So I would say that battlecopters can be a hard counter to, or not a hard counter, they're a soft counter to medium tanks. So something you gotta keep in mind. Now, lastly, I just want to show how the medium tanks do against ships. This is not something you'll see a lot, but it's funny nevertheless. Yeah, medium tanks don't do ship to battleships. However, they do actually do. Well, actually, no, they don't do damage to subs, but they do actually do decent damage to landers and cruisers. So, while subs and battleships are quite resistant to tank fire, cruisers are not. Cruisers are bad. So, I mean, this is just another reason why I should build cruisers. I'll counter medium tanks. Horrible unit. This was actually supposed to be a lander, but the damage to kill is around 50%. So, yeah. A bit of a useless trivia here. I just wanted to show how they work. So yeah, medium tanks, a very important unit. I would say knowing when to tank up is the most important thing about the medium tank. Being able to tank up, making sure that you have a good counter against you, get that tank up for your opponent. Again, rule of thumb, you see 3 tanks together, come together in the center, that's your crew to build a medium tank. Build them for wall break, lighter vehicles and infantry, but stay clear of indirects, as your medium tanks will basically be beacons for them. Yeah, I think that the medium tank is probably one of the most important units, at least going into the late game. And I like it. They're great units. They're not so expensive that they are completely possible to build, but still, they are quite an investment, and how you use them can determine the match. I mean, in some matches I build a medium tank, they go out and they get shot by an artillery in the fog, and I just lose. It's incredibly annoying. Other times, medium tanks have won in the match, where they have basically been able to ward off the opponent's tank aggression. But you could almost be outnumbered like 2-1 with tanks, and then the medium tank comes in and just completely shuts down that game. So they can be incredible game changers, but you can also lose them and lose the game. So a high risk, high reward unit, I would say. Anyway, guys, what do you guys think about the medium tank? Do you like them? Hate them? You know, in the comment section. What do you think about them? You know what? Like to see me cover next. Series. I promise, guys, I'll get to the dual strike units very soon. We only have a few units left, and it also for us to cover. Anyways, thanks. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. When it comes to your data lifecycle strategy,
You're joking. Raid's over and nothing happened. Alright. I thought failing a raid would result in all the villagers fucking dying or something. But it appears there were no consequences and I wasted my fucking life. Okay, comfort does not do what I thought it did. I think what I want is nourishment. What can give me 5 minutes of nourishment? Right after I've crafted a whole 100. Huh. You can make fake milk. I'll organize next episode. I have melon seeds. Why am I stupid? Alright, let me plant those right now at least. Otherwise I might fucking never remember. Melons are far too important. An unexpected flaw.